Hey guys, thank you for joining me for Dune Club session 7 and 8. You guys know what's going on. Other guys got really confused because they weren't here last week. But hey, how's it going? It's been a crazy week. Burbank is on fire. Houston is underwater. What's next? What's next, guys? I'm wondering about like my guy last week who's in Houston who said he was like staying, and I'm like, you okay? I need to go back and like find his name, like send him an email.
He did message us on Patreon.
Oh, he did? What did he say?
He posted on the thread and he said that he's okay and only his uncle's house flooded, so he's going to help today.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, Vicky's on it. She heard what was up. He's cool. Okay, good. Feel better. I was a little worried. I've been a little worried about it all week. I don't know. It's a crazy week. Anyways, so let's get into some of our Patreon questions. We're gonna start with our Patreon questions and then take it over to you guys.
I'm gonna move the mic a little closer to you.
Oh, okay. Move a little closer here. Move a little closer. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun reading these past couple weeks. I really like that we're finally with the Fremen now. We're really gonna get into it and get into some like weird shit. I'm really looking forward to next session too. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there to talk about. But yeah, it was like killing me when like he was like they're like, here, eat this, and it's just like filled with spice, and he's just like, oh fuck, I don't have anything else to eat. Fine, like fine, I'll eat this, but like this is gonna fuck my shit up, and it totally does. And he like he's fucking tripping balls. It's hilarious. Okay, so let's start with our questions. Kieran Donachi asks, do you think Frank Herbert's Dune offered some significance in inspiring such big world-building novels such as Game of Thrones? Absolutely. Totally. Like, totally. Dune has influenced, like, almost, all the other, not all the other, but I mean, it's a huge influence on science fiction and fantasy writing. Absolutely. I definitely see, a lot of Paul in the three-eyed raven idea, even though HBO doesn't really know how to translate it, and they're not really doing a great job of it because like people seeing the future, like that's a really hard thing to write, and like as we're reading in Dune, it's difficult to even describe it specifically from like as if he's the main character, Paul's the main character, and we're learning the most about it. It's still hard to like get a wrap on it, but anyways, yeah, absolutely. It's very influential. Very influential. Aldous Syriac Lazar asks, can you upload the live segment Q&A on YouTube? I'm from Europe and can't attend live and joined your Patreon to see if you posted them on here. But can't find them. It would be dope. Okay, well, yeah, we need to do that. There's a couple things like where I went a little, like last session, I totally said some shit I probably legally shouldn't have said, so I might have to cut a couple things out, but whatever. We have them recorded, so we'll be putting them up, I think. T-Bone, are we going to be putting up our live Q&A segments on YouTube? People were asking about it.
There are currently 5 and 6 are on YouTube right now, but they're unlisted.
Oh, they're unlisted?
They're on playlist.
Okay. Well, we're getting them on there. They're happening. Other question from him. Do you think becoming aware, raising awareness such a deep level like Paul, hold on, this is some English problems. I'm trying to translate this. Do you think becoming aware, raising awareness, or relating certain things on a deeper level like Paul makes you lose touch of humanity, in the sense of you getting too full of yourself, of having all this knowledge that you try to comprehend, that you literally just can't relate to other people that aren't aware on that level? Yes. Yeah, it's really crazy he's totally alone. He has like this whole other sense. We talk about like he's got a sixth sense or a fucking seventh sense where it's like he can sense fucking time space. So like because he's on that level and nobody can join him really. Well, it's not that nobody can join him. There are like we'll talk about that later. He does have kids that come after him and like things like that. But like it is really lonely, and I think that that's why he is now kind of like gravitating towards Chani versus Jessica because, at least she can give him a taste of normalcy. Like, because he does lament his humanity. He doesn't want to be this thing that he knows he has to be what he is, and he like accepts that burden of responsibility, but that doesn't make it any easier for him to carry. Like, it's difficult. I feel a lot of love for Paul. Poor guy. Simon Arsenault asks, Mel Brooks makes a parody of Star Wars that became almost as popular as Star Wars itself. If a Dune movie is made, would you watch a parody movie of it, or is Dune too sacred to be mocked? That's an interesting question. I think that like it's too intelligent to be mocked. I mean, you could mock anything, but like who's gonna go out of their way to mock something that's like one of the most intelligently written books?
It would have to become really popular for that.
Yeah, and it would have to be, yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. It would have to become really popular. And like Star Wars, a parody of Star Wars works because everybody knows about Star Wars.
Spaceballs is also making fun of all sci-fi pop culture stuff.
Yeah, Spaceballs is making fun of all sci-fi pop culture stuff.
Get the reference.
But it would have to become way more popular for a parody of it to happen. But I mean, you can parody anything. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I don't know. It's all about the popularity. I would watch it though. I mean, would I watch it? Yeah. I mean, I'd watch it to see. I would, if you can't make fun of yourself, who can you make fun of? Nothing is sacred. You can laugh at anything. Pierre Jerome asks, I just read the chapter where Jessica is challenged by Jamis, which leads to a trial by combat that requires Paul to be the champion and kill Jamis. Except with all the jargon thrown at Jessica, Paul, and the reader, the rules of that Fremen game are not sufficiently explained to the protagonists. While it leads to important character development, the setup itself feels completely artificial, a cliched literary device brought on just to force the plot along. Paul needs to kill, so some red shirt will challenge him for a fight to the death. Challenge, which is itself completely unnecessary except for external literary reasons. The pseudo-medieval combat will return later in the book, but what are your thoughts on the writing here? And I kind of talked about this last week, where I noticed a trend where like death marks a new beginning for everybody. And so in staying with that tradition, I feel like this is another death for Paul, to where he can, so he's been accepted into the Fremen fold, but they're calling him manling and man-child and all this stuff. I mean, he's got to play makeup class because like he hasn't grown up with these people, and so to really earn their respect and to earn that name, something has to happen. And so again, Frank Herbert uses a death, and I mean, yeah, you could say that it's cliched or whatever, but I don't have a problem with it. I like it. I think it's ritual combat's a thing. I think that he needed to have this another thing, going back to, I keep thinking about Paul should have been born a woman. Paul should have been born a woman, He was supposed to be born a girl, and he wasn't. And so it's like, for a boy, like, women give life, men take it. And so, this is him losing his virginity. Like, this is him losing his virginity. Sure, he killed that other guy, Jago or whatever, but that was just like purely in self-defense. That wasn't like a measured thing where you like face it and you don't want to do it and you have to, he's like put in this situation. But like he does it, and it's like he sheathes his knife like in that guy's fucking chest. And yeah, it was necessary. And I like this form of him losing his virginity. Like, this is like him losing his virginity, he's killing somebody, which I liked it. And Pierre goes on to ask, speaking of the pseudo-medieval Dune's futuristic setting seems backwards in many ways, except for the spaceships and the crazy mental powers. The political system and individual roles within society are literally ancient. This is quite bleak. Could you share your thoughts on comparing Dune's vision of the future versus, say, Star Trek? And what Frank Herbert is trying to do with this is that he's illustrating the universal principle of same shit, different day. Same shit, different day. This is something I got from Stephen King, SSDD. And what that means is that, yeah, it's like super in the future, but like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like power structures really don't change that much over time. Like they really don't. So he's just showing you like this is if we continue using the same types of government that we've been using, that this is what's going to happen, and like this is what's happened in the past, that's what's happening now. I mean, yeah, now we're act like, oh, this is medieval, and we're not like that, but honestly, we really are in a lot of ways. I mean, it may be a little bit different rules, it may not be families, but it's definitely still like a government works where you give your power up to a a strong leader, and then you have this power structure that's formed around this leader, and that happens. That just keeps happening, and it's going to keep happening until we find a way to have more responsibility for ourselves and have go towards, instead of laws, arbitration. Like we need to be more arbitrary. Like arbitration is kind of the key to the future, I feel like, and that we kind of see that later on in the books after God Emperor. Like arbitration comes into a thing, and it's like less about law. But with the Star Trek future, like the difference between this and that is that in the Star Trek future, humanity has grown up, like they have matured, and so because they've matured, they have a way more chill system going on. Although I don't know all of the political system going on in Star Trek. I know what's going on within the Federation, but I haven't done a full study on these Star Trek governments. But that, in this and Frank Herbert's thing, like humanity still hasn't matured. Like it's still doing the same things. And so the reason that he's illustrating it this way is to teach us now about what we're doing wrong. So
that's the thing about anything about the future is really about the present.
Anything that's about the future is really about the present. And whereas Gene Roddenberry was trying to give an example of what we could be, Frank Herbert is showing an example of what we fucking are. Like he's holding a mirror up to us. Kelly Martin asks, the Baron Harkonnen says that the presence of a thing is as telling as the absence of a thing. This quote echoes the sentiment of what do you despise? This theme has opened my mind to every aspect of the story and my life. It reveals all truth. The planet Arrakis, the Imperium, the characters, and the author. Do you feel that part of the power in this series is making the reader aware of what will happen before it happens? Do you feel that part of the power in this series is making the reader aware of what will happen before it happens is the purpose and also Frank Herbert's pain? Did he know he would have to work harder since he was revealing himself with each word and therefore make makers of readers? Thanks to you and your team XOXO. Well, Kelly Martin, I think that absolutely Frank Herbert is writing this to make people more aware. I think that Frank Herbert was a very highly aware individual. I feel like he was kind of a mentat. I think that he tapped into some I think that Frank Herbert tapped into some Kwisatz Haderach business when he did mushrooms. This guy was absolutely doing psychedelics. I mean, like, this was totally a thing that was going on. I see, like, the way he writes this, like, Paul, it's like, yeah, there ain't no way that he hasn't fucking tripped balls. Like, he's totally tripped out before. And so, yeah, like, on those trips, since he has such a crazy fucking brain, he's, like, so fucking, like, Frank Herbert's so fucking advanced. He tapped into some shit. And so this is him like, I need to fucking talk about this. Like, and he's definitely trying to create us into being his little makers so that we can go out there, because that's the best way to influence the world is through, I think, like, I believe that art is one of the most powerful influences in the world. A lot of people are like, oh, whatever, we don't get art, but you can use it. And it's like way better to teach someone through a simulation of a story rather than just like tell them. Like, no one's going to listen to you if you're just like telling them. Like, you need to draw them in, you need to show them, you need to make them feel it. And so by him making this novel, he's doing all of those things to teach us about how power works. Because he's also like, again, same shit, different day. He's just like, it's the same face. Like, you keep seeing it. Like, are you taking crazy pills? Like, I'm sure he was so frustrated seeing humanity make the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Are you trying to say art is a mirror to our world when you say same shit?
Well, no, I wasn't trying to say art is a mirror to our world when I said same shit, different day, but that's what I'm saying right now. Same shit, different day is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like, okay, we're 10,000 years in the future, but humans are still humans. Like, we still have our baseline bullshit that we're dealing with. We have never risen above that. But yeah, Yeah, and also, like, I mean, the thing that Frank Herbert's really trying to impress upon his readers is not so much predicting the future, but understanding the consequences of your actions. That's a big thing. It's just like understanding consequences, and that was definitely highlighted in the Liet Kynes' death segment or chapter from session 7, and even like in the when Jessica and Stilgar are talking, and he tells her that he's like, oh, I don't want to take you as one of my wives. Like, that's not going to work. This is why it's not going to work. Then I'm going to have to do this. This is going to be a problem. You know, like he takes her through all of his thought process on this. And she's like, whence comes such breeding? You know, I love her Bene Gesserit shit kicks in. She's like, where'd they get these genetics from? You know, like, holy shit, this guy's got crazy breeding. Like, what? Like, this is just a dude out in the desert. Like, they don't think that like people out there are thinking like that. And if they haven't been under Bene Gesserit influence. But like he's all about those consequences. Like he understands the consequences of his actions. He thinks about them like before he does something. And in fact, I think the header for that chapter may have been the one about like this word, I can't even pronounce it. It's like sponges something something, which is the desire to, the moment in between when you desire the thing and when you reach out to grasp it. And so even though Stilgar desires Jessica, he is not going to reach out and grasp it because he's taken that moment to think about what the consequences of grasping that object will be. Next question. Forrest Simonelli asks, not so much a question as a comment, but Brian Herbert's canon is hashtag fake news. To clear some stuff up, I read most of them before finding Frank's original series. Wow, you read the Brian Herbert stuff before the Frank stuff. That's like super bananas. The House Atreides, Harkonnen, Corino novels are direct prequels to the original book, focusing on the old Duke and Leto Atreides' previous children. The Butlerian Jihad is basically just a Terminator fan fiction. That's what I've heard. I can't get behind that fucking Terminator shit. Using names and places from Dune. The House Atreides doesn't come from Agamemnon in ancient Greece. It's some neckbeard video game player who uses it as his handle, and then later his name once he puts his brain into a machine body, thinking machines much less interesting than AI. The Harkonnens are just normal militaristic family that fight the robots, which are led by the Atreides neckbeard brain machine dude, as well as Omnius, which you know about. Literally none of the books are worth reading. This has been a PSA lol. Well, thank you, Forrest. Thank you for that. You know, we'll see if I'll read them. There might be a day where I just feel the need. I haven't felt the need thus far to read the Brian Herbert stuff, but it may happen. But yeah, I have a real problem with Omnius. I really don't believe that that's where Frank Herbert was going with it. I do not believe that the Butlerian Jihad was about like Terminator Skynet shit. Like that is not what Frank would do, you know. I just need like WWFD, you know, like what would Frank do? And I'm with you on that one. Let's see here. Bobby McIntyre asks, I have a question on what the Gom Jabbar is. Early in the book, the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother uses a needle at his neck and a box for Paul to put his hand in to test if he's human. But later in the book, which I won't say when because I finished it, Paul uses it against the Emperor's truthsayer and says, it's just words, no poison needle. Can you elaborate on that, or are we too far away from that part to talk about? Because I'm a little curious about how he was able to do that. Okay, so Gais Helmohim references her needle as the Gom Jabbar, like that's the lever of the test, you know. But really, it can be a needle, it can be a word, it can be anything. Like if you are tested, it's just like a Gom Jabbar is a word that you could use for a test, a life and death test. So yes, specifically it does refer to the needle with the poison, but that it's also like metaphorically speaking can just be like a test. So, and yeah. Moving on to Alyssa V. Slightly unrelated, this question was probably asked a gazillion times, but is there a chance that we see all Q&A sessions somewhere? Working on it, Alyssa. Working on it. Ebelek Big Tiger asks, how is it possible for Paul to fall in love with Chani with his powers? There's no surprise, no period of discovery. He already knows everything they will ever do. It would be like being in a relationship with a DVD. Okay. And also, since the eclipse, I've been out of it. I'm a Taurus. Any chance talking about what is being done to us? Interesting question. Okay. So as for Paul and Chani, I mean, whether you know that, like, I mean, he knows that he's gonna meet her. He hasn't stated that he knows that they're gonna like be together and like fall in love and like do a whole thing. He just has like seen her in his dreams. So like he hasn't looked into it. So I don't think that he's already like knows everything that's gonna happen with her. But I think that even so, it's like he's so lonely and he's so desperate and he just wants somebody to make him feel like a fucking normal dude. You know, he just wants to be like a man. I mean, everybody, as awesome as it is to be a fucking super being, it's like Superman. You know, I mean, Superman's kind of a lonely figure to me, where he's like this really awesome ubermensch character, but all Superman wants to do is be Clark Kent. Like, Superman is really interested in being Clark Kent. Like, he just wants to have those moments of just being a normal guy, because those moments are really important. Like, that's where your humanity lies, in these mundane moments. And so with Chani, even though he may be able to see things with her, it's like he still feels the love. I mean, he still like has her with him, and there is surprise, I think, because I mean, as he looks at it, he changes it. Like, it's not all written in stone. So I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen. Plus, also, he just, like I said, he needs somebody after his mom. Like, he's just lost his virginity, essentially, you know, in the book. And, like, he's no longer, like, he's become a man now. And so now he has to abandon his mother and find his lover, you know, and, like, that's kind of the next step. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's still, you know, it's still great. Love is love, even if you know you're going to fall in love with them. It's still, like, and Paul and Chani are so in love. Like, it's such a thing. As for the eclipse, dude, I've been the fuck out of it too, man. I've been having a really hard time with the eclipse as well. I don't know if it's the eclipse, but I mean, everything seems fucking crazy. It's like, you know, we have civil unrest. It's seemingly, you know, even though the media is pumping it up more than it actually is, it's like we've got that going on. We've got threats of war going on with North Korea and some bullshit over there. We've got, you know, hurricanes like keeping Texas underwater. The fucking mountains in my backyard are on fire. All Burbank's on fucking fire. It's fucking crazy, man. I just feel like right now it's like super crazy times, and it's like maybe the eclipse has something to do with it. I don't know. I feel like there might be, because that's the thing. Like, I don't fucking know, but I like the possibility of it, and I like to kind of watch and see what happens. And so, you know, the eclipse, like eclipse like that, is where there's like rapid external changes happening. Like, it's supposed to be symbolic of that sort of stuff. And so, in our external circumstances, not like internal changes, like external changes. So, I mean, I feel like, yeah, we got a lot of fucking shit in the works right now, a lot of chaos going on around us. So I think it's like we've all been knocked off schedule. I mean, I can't even, dude, I'm sleeping like a fucking Fremen right now, okay? Like, I'm going to bed at like 6 o'clock in the morning, like, not even joking. Like, I'm seeing the sunrise like every fucking day. I was doing really good there. I was going to bed between 4 and 5. I think that's totally doable. I don't think that's a problem. I make my own hours, so it's like I can get away with that sort of stuff. But lately, I just like this fucking, all this shit going on is just like, whatever. Like, I can't even hold on. I'm just going to be like, whatever. I'm going to go to bed at 7. Who cares? Like, whatever. So it's not just you. I think it's a lot of us. Edward Iglesias asks, could you speak a little about the realization Paul has that his mother is his enemy? It seems like this was inevitable just from being a teenager, albeit a rather gifted one. If so, shouldn't his mother be aware that this was going to happen as well? Yeah, well, that was one thing that I pointed out in the session, is like when Jessica's like, why is my son singing this girl a love song? Like, what is it? It's like, for a fucking Bene Gesserit, you're being pretty fucking dumb right now. Like, don't you fucking get it? Like, okay, first of all, he just had his first kill. Like, it's like, fucking is inevitable after killing. Like, just like she was saying earlier, that, like, the reason she got pregnant was because she was afraid that she was going to die. They were walking into death. And so that's, like, the natural thing. Yeah, I already went. It's fine. I couldn't wait.
Didn't wait either.
I know, it was emergency
Bad
time for,
timing.
yeah. She couldn't wait either. Or, fuck. No, let's think of this. Fuck. Hold on, let me load my brain back up here. I'm like a little fast and loose. I told you, like, I've been going to bed real late and, like, even kind of waking up for Dune Club. I'm like, oh, I could have slept fucking way longer. I woke up too early today. But yeah, okay, so after death, I mean, there's inevitably, like, a pull towards life. And so he's just killed a man. And he's like, there's this girl from his dreams. Of course, he's going to sing a love song to her because he's like, fuck it, you know, like, whatever. And, like, the thing is like, he's, like, really trying hard to figure out a way out of this jihad. Because, I mean, we see how much it hurts him just to kill Jamis. Like, it really bummed him the fuck out. Like, he's not a killer. He, like, Jessica specifically has gone out of her way to make sure he doesn't enjoy killing. Like, he's not a killer. He's not into it. And so when he sees this horrific holy war and, like, how much blood is going to be spilled in his name, I mean, that, like, fucks his shit up. Like, that's super upsetting to him. And, like, you know, I mean, he's set Jessica on this path, too, of, like, them scheming to, like, figure out, like, how to get his place back. But, like, in the middle of all this, like, they're figuring all this out as they go. They have to do everything in movement. And, like, she's just doing, you know, kind of what he wants her to do at the same time. But then now he's starting to realize with this, like, prescient vision, he's like, wait, he's realizing the full ramifications of what it means to do this. And it upsets him. And so now he's like, yeah, she's, you know, I got to keep an eye on her, you know, versus, like, she's got to keep an eye on him. Like, he's kind of surpassed her. So, but the thing is, at the same time, it's like, he's like, she's my enemy. But then, I mean, jihad still goes down. He still, like, just has to learn to accept it. And at this point, he hasn't learned to accept it yet. And so he's trying to make her the enemy, versus just, like, taking responsibility for it, you know. Although she is, I mean, she does have a huge hand in it. I mean, I could see why he's pissed at her. Moving on to our next question. Nathan Fennel asks, it is Virgo season, so it makes perfect sense that we would see Jessica flex her Bene Gesserit muscles in this section. Virgos are all about perfecting the moment and themselves. They are also known for their dedication to service, just like the Bene Gesserit. So cool. Beyonce is the world's most famous Virgo, and she is definitely Bene Gesserit. You also posted this question section at 4:44 a.m., which is the name of Jay-Z's last album. They are obsessed with number 4, too. Interesting. I really like that observation. I think that, you know, it's so funny. I had a friend of mine who's also reading along with Dune, and he texted me, and he's like, dude, like, I'm going through some Kwisatz Haderach shit right now. Like, I'm making all these possibilities happen. Like, he's, like, owns this crazy company, and he's, like, this super entrepreneur guy. And I was like, dude, like, weird shit happens to you when you read Dune. Like, you'll totally notice, like, synchronizations, things lining up. And I'm not surprised that you find this synchronization, because it's like, it just lines up in these weird ways when you're reading it. That's why I love it. That's why I'm trying to encourage so many more people to read it, because weird shit happens to you when you start reading this book. You'll start seeing things, and it's really fun. It's really fun. Super fun. It's a magic book. It's a magic book, in my opinion. Keith Rudenberg asks, have you seen the Sci-Fi Channel's miniseries Dune and Children of Dune? And if so, what do you think? I like the design of the Guild Navigators in those miniseries better than the David Lynch film version. I saw the original one, the original Dune miniseries, but I watched it, like, super late at night, and I haven't seen it since, like, high school. It's been a long time. But I remember when I saw it, I hated their casting for Paul. I hated that he had sandy blonde hair. I didn't think that, I just hated him. He was no Kyle MacLachlan. Like, let's be real about it. And then I hated the costuming. I thought it was so cheap. Like, I was just upset at how cheap it was. So, and I never watched Children of Dune, which I should. I like, what's that guy? The guy who plays Professor X, T, in the crappy X-Men movies.
Patrick.
No, not Patrick Stewart, the new guy.
Oh,
who's in
James
Split?
McAvoy?
Yeah, James McAvoy. James McAvoy plays Leto, Paul's son, in Children of Dune. And yeah, I like him a lot. After Split, I'm just like, yeah, that guy's a new one of my actors that I'm just gonna watch forever. Like, that guy's super awesome. So I kind of need to go back and see that. But I remember there was this fucking hideous Like Irulan wore this butterfly outfit that I just fucking hated. It was so ugly. It was so cheap. It was so fucking awful on like every fucking level that it could possibly be. And I'm a fucking snob. And especially like after David Lynch's version. Like David Lynch's version, the costumes were just like, mwah, like just so fucking good. So yeah, I'm a snob about that. But at the same time, the miniseries, the Baron was way better. Like I did like the Baron way better in the Dune miniseries because it was very much more true to the book. He's not some fucking covered in boils like madman. You know, they did a way better job. Daniel asks, if melange or something similar were found in our lifetimes, like on Mars or one of the solar system's moons, do you think at this point in history humanity could handle it, or would it be another resource to wage war over? Also, have you read Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land? The Fremen's thoughts on water vaguely remind me of the Martians' Water Brothers. It'd be great to hear you chat about this novel sometime too. So if I don't know, I think if melange were found in our lifetimes, I well, yeah, I mean, of course it's going to be fought over because essentially it extends life. So you're going to have people like at the top who are going to start taking the fuck out of that stuff and like extending their life as long as they can because, you know, they have all the money and they want to like live forever. So I think that it would become a resource that people would fight over. Although I think it would be, I mean, you know, I feel like the world would be a better place if we stopped the war on drugs, specifically psychedelics. I think if more people tried psychedelics, I think the world would be a better place. I'm not advocating everyone should use them. It's not for everybody, but the experiences that I've had with psychedelics have been very positive for me personally. You do have to be careful. I mean, you don't want to take like too much and be nuts. You need to make sure you're in a safe place when you're doing it. I mean, you have to have like the right people there, the right place. If you do it in the wrong place with the wrong people, it can like really go down a fucking not cool place. So you got to be careful. But I do advocate the use of psychedelics. I think that they're really awesome. And I'm going to continue to do them. And it's fun. It's a nice, like, but I'm also, you know, we're talking about um, zodiac signs. And I'm an Aquarius. I'm an air sign. Air signs are like intellect based. And so I love psychedelics because I really get to go into my brain. Like I really get to go into my brain, which is something I'm constantly aware of anyways. And so it's kind of like taking this Alice in Wonderland deal where you're just like, oh, fall down the rabbit hole and like it's figure out some weird shit, you know, and like get some stuff taken care of. And I always feel like it's very therapeutic. Like I always take care of a lot of business in there that's just like it's like cleaning it out, like cleaning out your gutters, you know, where you're just like, ugh, what is all this detritus? Like, get this out of here. Like, it's fine. Like, you're fine. You're doing great. Like, what the fuck is your problem? You're like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm just fucking so doing great. As for Stranger in a Strange Land, I have not read Stranger in a Strange Land yet. It is on my queue of science fiction books to read in my lifetime at some point. Nico asks, this is from section 7, but I don't think we covered it. There's a great Bene Gesserit axiom on page 423 that Jessica recalls when awakening in the still tent to see Paul staring out at the desert. The mind can go either direction under stress, towards positive or negative, on or off. Think of it as a spectrum whose extremes are unconscious at the negative end and hyperconscious at the positive end. The way the mind will lean under stress is strongly influenced by training. What a great quote! Which side do you fall on when it comes to stress? I personally find myself more often than I'd like falling into unconsciousness. Yeah, Nico, this is a really great quote, and I debated whether to put this in or talk about it. I didn't, but I wanted to because it is something that's really important, and I think it's also very true. Is that yeah, under stress, your brain can go into two directions. You can either turn off because you get so overwhelmed and then you start doing dumb shit and you don't even know what you're doing or you don't even do anything. Or you get, you know, we're saying hyper conscious where you're like Kwisatz Haderach and stuff, you know. And I personally, I do better with a little bit of stress in my life. I need a little bit of stress to get me motivated to go. So I like having a little bit of stress because it does make me more hyper conscious, generally speaking. Not to say that there aren't times where I do become really overwhelmed and then I'm like shut down. Like there's definitely been times where I'm like, this is way too much shit. I don't even know. Like I just can't even right now and I have to like stop. But there's nothing wrong with stopping too, because sometimes you do need to just like chill the fuck out. If you're ever in a position to where you feel like you need to make a decision, but you don't know what that decision is yet, I feel like waiting and doing nothing is usually the best thing in that action. Like you'll figure it out eventually. Just give yourself time to have more information reveal itself to you, and then you'll be able to make a decision. This is something that I think about when I see the Hanged Man of the Tarot. He's like this guy who's upside down. And that's what he teaches, is where you have to just take a moment and not do anything and look. And especially in our very yang society where we feel like if you're not doing something, if you're not being proactive, then you're a fucking asshole. It's just like, that's not always the case. Like sometimes you need a little bit of time to figure it out, and it's okay to take that time, to take that space. Andy Furman asks, I tend to read at night when my head is foggy. But did they just cover how Dr. Kynes was caught? I feel like they just picked up with him and left him to die where we last saw him, and he took another path to escape. Okay, so the last time we saw Kynes was when he was talking to Paul and the starter car bust in. So that's when he was captured. We don't see him captured. We don't see him under interrogation. We don't see how he gets out to the desert. We just see him right before he gets captured, and then we see the effects of that. We hear that he's been captured, and then we see the effects of that. So... But that happens a lot in this book where it's like they just cut to, it's like you have what happened and then the consequences of that. We don't get a lot of like everything leading up to everything. Andy goes on to ask, on another note, I did some reading on a plane ride this week. You should have seen the look on my seatmate's face when she glanced over and saw the bookmark you supplied. It was something between horror, confusion, and awe. Lastly, I used the litany against fear for my quarterback this week. I coached junior high football as he was scared of some of the boys we were playing. I think it went over his head. Well, that's hilarious. I'm so glad that that woman was freaked out by my bookmark. If you guys bought a Dune box, I supplied a bookmark. And on that bookmark is an image of me that I did for my calendar for 2015 calendar. And it's me as Duke Leto. Because I said I was going to do a Dune-related cosplay, and everyone thought I was going to do, like, Jessica or, like, some, like somebody just some hot shit, some Fremen, like, still suit stuff. And I was like, nope, I'm going to do the grossest, like, I was a troll. I trolled my audience a little bit. I was like, I'm going to be the grossest, fucking weirdest character in Dune. And I had my friend Tim Martin, who's an amazing sculptor. I had him sculpt up this worm body. And then we did this thing where we, like, and then I did, facial prosthetic stuff, took pictures of that, merged them together, and it turned out really funny. Tyson, can you hand me a Benadryl from over there on the cabinet in the kitchen? By all my bottles of stuff, powders. Yeah, every time I do these things, like my nose starts running. I don't know what the deal is. It's like I always get mucusy when I do these. I don't know what it is. It's bizarre. Anyways. So, yeah, so I put that image of me as the God Emperor. It's really creepy. I put it on the bookmark, along with some God Emperor quotes. And, yeah, so I'm glad she was freaked out. That makes me happy. And also, I appreciate you trying to use the Litany of Fear for your guy. Like, I think that I'm proud of you for trying to use it. It may or may not have went over his head. Maybe it'll sink in. People in high school, though, their brains aren't even done forming yet. They don't fucking know. You just have to you can lead a horse to water, that's all you can do. Quasar Rana asks, do you think that Frank Herbert's Dune is one of those stories that should be visited in the reader's mind rather than filtered through a director's eye and then onto the big screen? Do you feel that the seductiveness of a mystery is in not knowing? Loving the in-depth discussions raised in Dune Club thus far, and thank you, Team 19, for making all of this possible. Well, you're welcome. And, yeah, that's a tough one for me because I feel like Dune is one of those things that's so massive that it is, like, better when you read it. I don't think that anyone is ever going to really do it justice on the big screen. I don't know if it's possible. It is possible. We live in a universe of possibilities. Anything is possible. Is it probable, though, that someone is going to translate this correctly and have the resources they need and do it justice with the way our current system works within Hollywood? that is not very probable. I feel like this is, and also too, it's like, okay, so thinking of plain economics. So like someone's going to invest a bunch of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars into making a Dune movie or a Dune series, whatever. In order for them to recoup that expense, it has to blow up and people have to go watch it, people have to see it, they have to buy the merchandise, they have to do all this stuff, right? And the problem with Dune, the biggest stumbling block for it is that it is like really highly intelligent and it's not something that's really meant for mass consumption. Like the if you want something to be really popular, it can't be really complicated. It has to be you have to find elegant simplicity. You know, I mean, that's I think why Star Wars works so well is because it has very elegantly simple concepts within it. You know, you have all the Yoda teachings and all those sorts of things, and the Jedi and the Sith stuff, and that's very like black and white. You know, it's easy for people to digest that. It doesn't really challenge. Doesn't really challenge anyone as much. It's just more like, oh, that sounds right. Okay, we can go on with this. Whereas Dune is just so fucking complex. It's just so complicated, and it's just not very accessible. And it's just not very accessible. And so I don't think that it can ever be mainstreamed. I don't know if Dune can ever be mainstreamed. And so you're at this weird thing where it's something that needs so much money to make it good, but then I don't believe it's going to make its money back because it isn't going to become this huge popular like phenomenon in our culture because it can't be mainstream because it's too complicated. So we'll see. I mean, I'm really interested to see what happens with Legendary. They've been adapting it. So, and I mean, they do have the right people so far from what I've heard. They have Villeneuve, who's a really great director who did Sicario and did Arrival. And I think that he's doing Blade Runner 2049. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, as I said last week, part of the reason I'm doing this is that I don't know. I'm a watchdog. I'm watchdogging them. You know, I'm just like, you better do like if you're gonna do Dune, like do it fucking right. You know, if you're gonna fucking do it at all, you better fucking do it right. And so I'm trying to teach you guys about like how awesome it is, so that hopefully they are influenced in some way to try to do it right. Maybe, you know, maybe there's a possibility where someone may reach out to me from Legendary or something. You know, I could have some sort of part in this. Like maybe I think that's a really far possibility, but again, we live in a universe of possibilities. It's something that could happen. So the probability we'll see. But I feel like by placing myself as the Dune lady on the internet, they're gonna have to like deal with me on some level. So we'll see what that level is, and you know, who knows? I think that Dune could be really cool if it was like animated. I don't know why we have to do everything live action. I think that like animation stuff could be like really fucking cool, but nobody ever wants to do that. Everyone wants to just make everything live action because I guess they feel like people don't have imaginations and they're only impressed if it's real people doing something and they can't just be carried away by a story. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get why Warner Brothers isn't doing animated like badass films of the Justice League either. You know, I think that's like if they really want to save their asses, do some fucking awesome animation stuff and just get away from the live action thing, like, because you guys are just fucking bumbling it like all over the place. Tim Farber, Tim, you're the one. I made it through the Hurricane Harvey unscathed. Good job, Tim. Didn't get flooded out. Might not make it to Dune Club this week as I'll be helping an uncle that did get flooded out. Luckily, that's the only person I know that got hit. None of my other friends or family got hit. Well, good to know, Tim. Thanks for checking in and letting us know. That was like really important because I was worried about you. Brandon Gilbert asks, hey CBG, I can't make the live shows anymore because I have to work on Sundays now, so I went ahead and finished the book. Now I'm reading Dune Messiah. I remember you saying that you wanted to make a set of Dune tarot cards. Is that something you're interested in, can legally do? I would love to have a set with your art on them. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Yeah, I've toyed with the idea of creating a tarot deck. I'm a student of the tarot. I've been studying it for maybe about 7 years now, and I'm still studying it. I mean, it's something that's why I like the tarot is that there's so much, it's so massive that you can like study it for a really long time. I like things you can really sink your teeth into it and still never like, you can always find new things about it. It's always teaching me new things. In fact, lately, at night, I pull a random card and then I like meditate on it. I look at it, really look at it, and then I meditate upon it and I read about it in my Jodorowsky book about tarot because I have this book, The Way of the Tarot by Alejandro Jodorowsky, and it's about the specific deck that he helped to recreate for now. It's based on a really, really old deck, one of the oldest decks that we have record of. So, yeah, so I've thought about doing some Dune tarot cards. The thing about making Dune tarot cards, though, would be like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I mean, you'd have to start with the major arcana, which there's 22 major arcana cards. And then the rest are like the swords, the cups, the wands, and the pentacles. And I think in the Dune tarot, it's like there's the crysknives, the glow globes, what are the other ones? There's like crysknife, glow globes, maybe like guild ships. I don't know. I have to look at my encyclopedia. I can't think of it. But I mean, I might if it strikes me. But it would be a lot of work. It would be a lot of work. But I mean, that's all I do is work. So I mean, it's like it's not that out of the realm of possibility. But if I did do it, it would take a long time, and it would be like it would take a minute. Transmograph asks, a leader is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. Stilgar tells Jessica, do you think this was Herbert's own belief as well? If so, how does that gel with his emphasis on individual responsibility? Stilgar goes on to say that the leader maintains the level of individuals, so there seems to be a subtle connection there that I'm not getting. Yeah, this was something that I really loved. I really loved a lot. Is a leader is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. And that's the thing that's so fascinating about the Fremen is that individually, just like the Bene Gesserit, they're very similar in that they're taught to be really self-sufficient, like extremely self-sufficient and really badass people on an individual level. Like everything that the Fremen culture teaches them is to be stronger. Everything the Bene Gesserit culture teaches them is to be stronger and how to be sharper and quicker and better. And so when you have a society that instead of trying to weaken their people, tries to strengthen their people on an individual level, and that's how you truly create a strong society. That is how you truly create a strong nation of people. Because you're only as strong as your weakest link. And that's something that, within our society, like our modern society, I feel like we're encouraged, especially within America. I don't know about other countries, I haven't lived there, but within America, we're treated as consumers. They want us to be these consumers, these cows that just like are dumb and weak and like are easily tricked by stupid advertising and are tricked to believe that, in order to keep the money going, you have to be convinced that you're not good enough and that you need something. And like this product, whatever it is going to make you a better person. And a lot of times it's just garbage. Not to say there aren't certain things out there that are awesome that you do need and that will make your life better. But by and large, most of it's garbage. And so, yeah, we encourage our people here to be fat and stupid and that sucks. And that's why we need to get away from that. I think that education really is super important. Educating the kids is really fucking important. I think that our educational system is fucking broken. I think it's fucking sucks. I don't even understand why we're still doing this. If you went it's one of the only things, one of the only institutions that really hasn't changed that much over the past 100 years or more. It's just still kind of the same thing, and it just teaches people to be wage slaves is what it is. It's it teaches you to wake up at a certain time, to have authority figures, you know, because that's another big thing about America is like respect authority, respect the authority figure, you know, and it's like, but you're supposed to respect them because they're there, not because they're actually the strongest person in the tribe who's actually whipped everyone's fucking ass and they've earned that respect. You know, they're just placed in this position of respect and you're supposed to just do it and just go along with it and not question what they say. And that's fucked up. And that's not how it works in the Fremen leadership. And that's not how it works within the Bene Gesserit either. It's like only the strongest, you know, get to the top. And like, and they want to put the strongest at the top to help protect the tribe as a whole, while also maintaining their individuals being strong in themselves. So, I mean, that's what Frank Herbert saw was how to make a fucking people better. That's how I fucking see that we can make people better. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Justin Terrell asks, going back to the Reverend Mother's initial meeting with Paul and Jessica, what do you think Mohim knew the exact plot? To what extent do you think Mohim knew the exact plot against House Atreides on Arrakis? Did she encourage or affect the Emperor's decision to collaborate in the plot? Since Jessica failed to bear a Bene Gesserit child, do you think the Bene Gesserit are active collaborators since their initial plans were disrupted? Great work on Dune Club and all of your reviews. I think that Gaius Helen Mohim knew exactly what was going to go on. I think that she would absolutely have the information of what was going on. I think that's why she was like, for the father, nothing. You know, like, and that's why she came there to warn them and be like, hey, some shit's really gonna go down and Leto's gonna fucking die. And like, if you guys are gonna survive this, like, and you may or may not survive this, but like, these are the skills you're gonna have to put into this kid, and this is what you need to expect going into this. So, I mean, they put Jessica in the line of fire, that's for sure. And if she made it, then fucking awesome. But if she doesn't make it, then fuck her because she didn't do what she's supposed to do anyways. So that's why they're not like necessarily going out of the way to protect her. But in the same way, it's like, I mean, this is Jessica's like Gom Jabbar, you know? It's like she's put in this terrible position where she has to like strengthen up and get through it or die trying, you know? And she's either going to come through this trial of fire and like become a whole other level of Jessica, or, you know, she's dead in the water. So, yeah, and I don't think that it was personal, though. Like, the Bene Gesserit, I mean, like, they like to punish people, but it's like they're not setting this up all, you know, helping all this plan along just to personally fuck her over. It's, like, more on the level of just like, well, this is something that needs to happen. You know, what we were doing kind of isn't working. This is what's going on now. We have to go with the flow. We have to make this work. Because that's the thing about the Bene Gesserit is they just also try to go with the flow and make things work as things change. So, yeah. Nora Heron asks, hi, I don't understand the Padishah Emperor. What is his purpose? Why did he help the Harkonnen destroy the Atreides? Okay. The Padishah Emperor is the emperor over, like, he's the one that's above all the great houses. You have all the great houses that control, okay, look, you have peasant populations. Then above that, you have like minor houses who like deal in like merchant stuff and all this other things. Then you have the great houses who are over them, who are over entire planets. And then great houses, I think, can probably have multiple planets too. They don't just have to have one. And then over him is the emperor, so he's like the top. So he's over everybody. So and he was just worried about Duke Leto like challenging him in the Landsraad for his, you know, for his position of power. You know, he's trying to protect House Carino. So that's why he helped let the Harkonnens destroy the Atreides. Kevin Oliveris asks, why can't Jamis just let it go that Paul beat him and follow Stilgar's lead? Stilgar was bested by Jessica and he doesn't hold a grudge. Stilgar even tells Jamis he will kill him if he wins. Is Jamis's grudge to show the importance of honor, pride, or principles to the Fremen? Perhaps Jamis has a crush on Chani and is too embarrassed. It just seems like lose-lose for Jamis because even if he wins, he and Paul both die. I guess if Jamis loses, Paul might be the liaison al Gabe and save all the Fremen, but at the cost of his life. And, I mean, it's stated specifically within the book that Jamis has a really bad temper. Like, he's got a really bad temper, and he broods, and he's kind of an asshole. Not to say that he's a bad Fremen or a bad person, he's not, but he just does have a temper, and he doesn't have control over his temper. And his temper will get the best of him, and so that's kind of, you can use that, you know, in a fight, but like, that can endanger your people as a whole, and yeah, I mean, he's just he's not as mature maybe as he should be, and so that's why he can't let it go. It's just like he's just not mature, and he feels and he also, like, I do think that there's a part of him that, like, okay, so he's like he functioned as the outsider in this group, because no matter, even if you have a group of people like the Fremen who are like military, fucking religion and law, like, you know, they're just fucking crazy people, you always have the exile. There's always the outsider. And so in this instance, he's playing the outsider, whereas everybody wants to believe in Paul and Jessica. Everybody wants to believe that. He's playing the part of the exile who is questioning what's going on. And like that person's always really important. Like the exile is very important. Whether he's wrong or right, it's always important to have somebody who's looking at things from a different perspective and saying like, this could be bullshit. And the thing is that because his pride and his ego was hurt, he doesn't want to accept these two. So that gives him a perspective of looking at them as they really are versus letting his emotions get caught up in the idea of the liaison Al gave. So when he sees Jessica doing this cant, you know, he's like, oh, you know, Stilgar could have told her about this. She could have bird talked it to us, you know, and like he's right. Like he's totally right. And I think that's why he also goes for this, because he sees her for the fraud that she is, because she is a fraud to a degree. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but at the same time, like she is bird talking it to them. It's not from Stilgar telling her, it's from the Missionary Protectiva. But like, because his ego's been hurt, he's able to see that, and then he's like, well, fuck them then. Like, my ego's been hurt, and then I see that this bitch is fucking fake, so fuck this shit. And like, that's why he stands by his word, because he knows that he is right. There is truth in what he's saying. And so I think that's where that comes from, even though, you know, he has to possibly die. Because, I mean, he still could, like, Stilgar, you know, may or may not have been able to kill him afterwards, but yeah, like the truth sense that he sensed is what spurred him to do this, I believe, as well as his hurt ego. Puffy Dugan asks, wow, these last few chapters really got me. Definitely my favorites so far. I was really surprised when I found myself tearing up at Jamas's funeral, just as Paul was. I just feel so much sadness for both Jamas's ultimate death and Paul's loss of innocence. Paul's loss of innocence. That was a good way to put it. This to me was by far the most pivotal moment for Paul's development so far, in my opinion. Am I alone here in seeing Paul's conflict with Jamas as a metaphor for Paul's struggle with his shadow self? When you think about it, Jamas's defining trait that is shown to us is his skepticism and rebelliousness. Jamas sees right through Jessica's missionary protectiva scheming and refuses to be subject to superstitious prophecies. This parallels exactly with Paul's deep-seated sense of defiance against his destiny. He has nightmares of a bloody, gigantic jihad carried out in his name. He has no respect for Gaius Hal-Mohim and the Bene Gesserit, seeing right through their cultivated air of mysticism. By being forced to kill Jamas, he's forced to come face to face with his own shadow, his perhaps subtly growing suicidal desire to avert a massive holocaust of lives. He is being forced to destroy his own will to rebel. He's being forced to destroy his own will to rebel, and through the rituals of death, made to submit to the will of the people. The very great consciousness pushing him towards ultimate power, yet ultimate complete servitude. With Jamas, so too does a big piece of Paul die. Worst of all, he feels betrayed by his mother, who sacrifices his emotional well-being to manipulate the situation in the eyes of a greater group by calling him a killer. He now sees her as his enemy because she is the emblem of all the ruthless machinations that deprive him of so much choice, rendering him less a human being and more of a living fulcrum of the universe's whims. Dude, girl, you totally nailed it. Like, you super nailed it. Everything you're thinking, yes. Like, keep going. Like, you're doing great. You're doing so great, sweetie. I feel like that fucking meme with Pimp Mama Kris Jenner, where she's like taking a picture. It's like, you're doing so great, sweetie. Like, take a picture on her phone. Like, keep going. Like, except it's not fame whoring. Except it's like thinking critically about a book, which is what you should be doing. Yeah, totally. I think that you're on the right path there. And again, it's so funny that we just talked about this and then you brought it right back up. Is, you know, Jamas seeing through the scheming, you know, and he's like rebellious, and yeah, so that was awesome. Yeah, good job. Follow-up question. On a lighter note, what do you think of Millie Bobby Brown as Chani? She's a little on the young side right now, but maybe by the time production starts, she'll mature more. You know, she's just so Elven. For Jessica, I'm torn between Robin Wright and Gillian Anderson. Which would you prefer? Keep up the great work, Team 19. Millie Bobby Brown. Is that the girl from Stranger Things? Yeah, I think that she could work. I think that for Jessica, though, I think that, like, she should be, like, in her 30s. Like, I think that Robin Wright and Gillian Anderson, whom I both love and adore, and they're amazing, but I think that they are a little too old. I think that Paul's supposed to be 15, and, like, Jessica's supposed to be, like, you know, in her mid-30s. You know, like, she had him, like, it was the thing. James Garner Hobson says, I really think Alicia Witt would make an amazing Jessica. It would be poetic to me since she played Alia when she was a little girl. That would be hilarious, actually. That would be super hilarious. John Gunther asks, in this session, we really start to see the Missionaria Protectiva specifics coming into play. Given the Fremen religion faith is based on Bene Gesserit's seeding with Missionaria Protectiva, how important is it to the Fremen that their faith truths come from an actual divine god, Shai Hulud? My feeling is that for the Fremen and the vast majority of humans, a divine source is required. A truth must become God in order to be believed/followed. Do you agree? Why do you think humans seem to require the existence of God or gods? Fascinating question. There's a lot of stuff we can go into with that. It goes back to wanting to give our power away. That's something that is very much within us. I think that part of the need for a god and a need for religion comes from wanting to give our power away to a greater source. You know, like whether, I mean, it's the same thing that we do with governments. You know, it's the same thing we do with a lot of stuff. Only this time it's like spiritual power. You know, like we want to give that up. So that, you know, in certain ways, people want to give that up because it takes away personal responsibility. You don't have to be responsible anymore. You're like, oh, the gods, you know, the gods, it's all about them. Like, if I just worship them, then they're supposed to, knock my glasses off. They're supposed to do things for me. And, like, I don't know, that's how it's been twisted. You know, like personally, I'm a really big fan of gods. I think that they're really interesting. I think that they're kind of like superheroes. Like gods kind of remind me of all these like different heroes. Like you have, and some of them are very similar, like Horus and like Jesus and I think is it Krishna or is it, I don't know. There's a few of them that are very, very similar. I'm not as up on the Hindu stuff and the Buddhist stuff. I'm a little bit in there, but like Ganesha, like it's like so cool. And like, I think that a lot of people have sour taste in their mouth especially from Jesus, you know, and it's like, I think that they all these really great teachings. They're symbols, you know, you have to look at these gods as symbols and you have to recognize that instead of thinking, like we tend to externalize things. That's the problem, is when we externalize God and think that God is something that's out there, instead of realizing that it's a part of us, that we all have a piece of this divine source of it within us, and that, you know, all of these things that we're projecting around us are really things that are just like inside of us. So just like, I don't know, it's all very symbolic. And so, like, not that the Fremen, I don't know, like the Fremen have been, they externalize, but they also internalize. Like they're a little bit of both, like, which is kind of like, I feel like the universe, I guess if I had to say like what God I worship, it's like I worship the universe. Like that's my externalization idea of what God would be. It's just like the idea of the universe at large, you know, like, and I try to get to know the universe. Like the main thing that I found about the universe is like it has a really fucking hilarious sense of humor. The universe is a really fucking funny guy. Real funny guy, and loves to play pranks on you. Like, loves to make you look like an asshole, loves to point out things to you. Like, if you look back at certain times in your life and you're like, oh, you got me, universe, you know, you got me. I think that's my kind of, I feel like, more healthier way of looking at it versus thinking like there's some guy with a beard in the clouds and who's looking down and, you know, making whatever. Like it's a little bit more complicated than that. And the thing is about God really is like you really can't imagine it. Like it's so big. It's like such this omnipotent, omnipresent, like everything that's around us is like made from it. It's a really hard thing to think about. You can't really you have to abandon logic to a degree, and like even I don't know, you got to go into some weird fucking directions to kind of try to wrap your mind around it. But yeah, but the thing about religion that you have to keep in mind is that just like everything, it's man-made, you know, like and it can be used as a tool against your fellow man. It can be like anything can be used for good or for bad. Anything. So while religion, I feel like has a lot of really amazing, awesome things you can learn from it that are really fucking valuable and really helpful. It also is twisted by people who are in control of it, and it's used against certain people as well, and it's used to gain wealth for certain people, and it's, you know, I mean, it's just like everything. I mean, and you can't get mad at people tend to get mad at spirituality and say I don't want to be spiritual because religion is a fraud, you know, and it's like, well, yeah, there's a lot of fraud shit going on in religion, but there's a lot of fraud shit going on within our medical system. There's a lot of fraud shit going on within our government. There's fraud shit wherever you go. Like wherever you have stuff, it's like it's a man-made institution. There's going to be fraud bullshit afoot. So you have to be able to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. Like you have to divorce the man-made shitty parts of it and then focus on the actual helpful parts of it, that like things that ring true to your soul, that like make you feel like more oneness with the universe. Like that's what you really need to look for, is like feeling more oneness, and not like don't pay attention to that shit that separates us. Pay attention to the shit that connects us. Mandatron asks, in this session, we saw how Paul's knowledge of possible futures can lead to indecision and uncertainty. Now, as he has begun to view Jessica as his enemy and the bringer of the jihad that he glimpsed in his visions, would you say that his prescience is a blessing or a curse? And it's both. I mean, again, it's like, it's both. Like, anytime someone asks me, is this one thing or is this other thing? Like, it's both. It's both. You can't divorce one from the other. That's what Leto was thinking about when he died. The constant like push and pull of how the day the flesh shapes and the flesh the day shapes, you know. It's like it's both. It's nature, it's nurture, it's blessing, it's a curse. I mean, like just like I was talking about with religion, it's like it could be used as a tool for good, it could be used as a tool for evil. Like, I mean, it can be used whatever way you want to use it. Philip J asks, I'm a Vonnegut fan and think of Tralfamador with many nonlinear characters. Could you see Paul as being unstuck from time? Well, he is and he isn't. Like he's unstuck from time, but he's while still again like it's both. It's both. Like he's unstuck from time, but he's also stuck in time. Like he's in the eternal now. He's aware of the eternal now that's going on in the present, but he's also aware of the past and the future. So it's like, but it does make him, like somebody else said, he's a fulcrum. He's not unstuck. He's not like free. He's like, he's the opposite. He's completely stuck. Like he's completely trapped. You know, like he is like, everything he does has these huge fucking ramifications for the entire universe. James Garner asks, I'm wondering once again at the mystical aspects of this story insofar as prophecy and precognition. It's clear there is an element of that going on outside of Paul's own abilities, such as the MP's seeding of prophecy in Fremen society. What I wonder more about is just why it is that Paul seems so averse to unleashing jihad upon the greater human society outside of Arrakis. Given what that society has done to his family, and how necessary such a great war apparently is to shake loose the future potential of humanity. Well, I think it's because he's a human. Like I think that. And this is why he's such a great leader, is that he does feel the burden and the weight of death. Like, he doesn't take death lightly. He feels it. He hates it. It doesn't feel natural to him. It hurts him to, you know, kill another person. Like, it degrades his soul, he feels like. And so seeing this jihad, even though while he knows it's necessary and while he knows it's in the mail, it doesn't make it any less of a burden on him. You know, it doesn't make him feel any better about it, that he wants to figure out a way to like make it to where it's not like that, because he's a human being and he doesn't want to see all those people hurt. Like he does have empathy, you know, he does have compassion. And so he sees the burden of responsibility, but it doesn't make it easier. Alexander Larkin asks, Session 8 has some of my favorite moments in the book. I love that Paul has this super awareness of what the spice is doing to him, and he seems to be slightly afraid of these changes and afraid of the euphoria that ingesting the spice brings. This session ends with Paul describing prescience like an ocean tide, which is interesting. In a chapter so concerned with amounts of water, Jamas's water, Jessica's to Leader John's, the water from the wind traps, what do you think Herbert is trying to tell us about Paul's powers by likening them to the ebb and flow of the ocean? So glad we finally get to meet Chani. She's my favorite character in the series so far. Also, Greater Creators was a lot of fun, especially the three-parter on Stanley Kubrick. Well, I mean, like you were saying, there is a lot of water symbolism in this. And there's also another water symbolism thing that I thought was really interesting, which was when he doesn't want to take Jamas's water, and his mother thinks about a quote that's like, the ability to survive is the ability to swim, or the ability to adapt and survive is the ability to swim in strange waters, you know, and how she's like, we're in strange waters right now because there is no fucking water, you know, like, that's definitely a thing. And then, you know, Paul says, from water does all life begin. And he quotes the OC Bible, which she doesn't know that Dr. Yui gave him the OC Bible. She has no idea that he'd been studying it, that he had it. And he actually did like read a bunch of it, obviously. So, and then, yeah, so then now we have more water stuff. And it's like, he's doing it on purpose. He's absolutely doing it on purpose because that is kind of how it works. I would feel like he really thought about this, and that it would kind of be like, it talks about how he's on a wave, and sometimes he's on the crest of the wave, sometimes he's in the trough of a wave, but he's like he's being carried by this wave. And he talks about Heisenberg indeterminacy, and Heisenberg indeterminacy also talks about waves, but it's not like literal waves. It's like waveforms, which is a thing in quantum physics where if you, just by observing a phenomenon, you change it. Like, you can't, like, just human observation will change what's going on, which is so funny because when you think about the scientific method, which is all about being cold and detached and clinical and being able to see this thing play out, you know, in this detached form, it just goes to show you that that's not really fucking possible. Like, that's not even the deal. Like, there's no way to get this purely scientific reading on something, because the day the flesh shapes, the flesh the day shapes. Like, we're constantly fucking doing this. Anyways, it's talking about how he's on this wave and how there's these other waves around him, and he can, like, sometimes certain waves go down and he can see things that are happening and they come back up, and then you can't see what's going on. So it's just like, I think it's a perfect way to describe it, and it also works so well with the lack of water that's going on. Like, instead of having water all around him in like the physical form, he has it around him in a space-time form. So kind of makes up for the lack of physical water. Alexander Larkin asks, I feel like there is an important lesson in finding out that Jamas owned a balisette after he is killed. Perhaps Jamas and Paul could have been friends under different circumstances. After all, they both like music, and anyone who likes music can't be all bad. Love when Paul plays for Chani, such a frat boy move. Also, did Frank Herbert imply that even Jessica got a little bothered by hearing Paul bust out some acoustic jams? Yeah, I know, it is sad because like they would have been friends, you know, and that's like, and I think that's like what Paul kind of sees when he says, like, you know, Jamas taught me, like, I'm a friend of Jamas. When he was killed, or he taught me that when you kill, you pay for it, you know, and like he does know that like this guy was a fucking cool guy, and the thing is like he knows that his mom is a fraud, and that this guy is calling her out being a fraud, and that like he knows that he's right. Like, he's like, this guy is like, he respects him because he knows that this guy is seeing the truth, and like to have to like silence him and kill him like this, like he doesn't want to have to do it. Like, that sucks to kill a guy that you know is fucking right. You know, like, it's like there's no fucking hard feelings here for Paul, you know? It's like, it's super, like, he just didn't want to do it. Larkin also comes back and says, oh my god, I just realized that Paul's two Fremen names, Usul the base and Muad'Dib wisdom, are at the top and bottom spheres of the Kabbalah tree of life. Yeah, like Usul the base, which is kingdom, Malkuth is kingdom. So yeah, I could see that. Although you could say that Yesod, which is foundation, You could also say usul maybe like that. As far as the wisdom aspect, wisdom is chokmah, which is, I guess, the highest sphere besides crown. Like Kether is the crown. So he's like almost up to the crown. So like I see where you're going there. I like where you're going. I didn't think about that. You're totally right. There's some total shit going on there. Mark Jake asks, on page 504, Paul quotes from the OC Bible 467 Kalima that Dr. Yui gave him, saying, "From water does all life begin." And the Lady Jessica is surprised, thinking, where did he learn that quotation? He hasn't studied the mysteries. Why hasn't Paul been instructed in religious matters? Since the Bene Gesserit rely on religion, it seems like something that would be part of his training. Something that would be as important to them as the other disciplines that they are teaching Paul. Why doesn't it occur to Jessica that Paul may have read an OC Bible? Isn't this their primary religious work of the time? Yui's wife was a Bene Gesserit, and she had a favorite passage in the OC Bible, so we know that at least some BG were familiar with it. Also, this indicates Paul never told his mother about Yui's gift. He's keeping this from her. This lack of communication is apparent in his thoughts that Jessica is his enemy. Won't he just tell her about his visions and say, in essence, Mom, you're going to cause a jihad, so please cut out this behavior of thinking of the Fremen as peasants who can be wielded like a sword. Yeah, well, if you remember, Dr. Yui told him, don't tell your mom about this, so she doesn't know that he's seen the OC Bible. And that's not to say that he may not have been introduced to it at some point. He just had not been introduced to it by them at that time. Like, maybe he would have been introduced to it later. I'm not entirely sure, like, why in his training he hadn't received it yet. But I feel like it's something that would have happened eventually. But like I said, she had no idea he had any contact with this. It has been, I mean, it's probably been kept from him, not like they're like, oh, you should never read this or whatever, but they just like don't even, they just don't keep one around or anything, it's like not impressed upon him at all. And I mean, why he doesn't just tell her, like, why doesn't he just say, like, Mom, you're going to cause jihad, so please cut out this behavior? Well, he's playing it close to the vest. I mean, you don't want to tell your enemy, like, what you think. Like, that's the whole thing, is, like, they know what you're thinking, then they can predict how you're going to act. And so he's playing it close to the vest because he doesn't want them to know, doesn't want her to know, like, what he's thinking. He doesn't want her to know that because then she can kind of try to outmaneuver him. And also, it's interesting because before he gets in the knife fight, he tries to explain to Jamis what's going on. He's like, let me explain. Like, can I just try to explain here? And, like, that immediately blows up in his face. Because the thing is, like, he does see it. He does know it. He could explain it to you. But the thing is people, as we were talking about earlier, people don't want to have things explained to them. Like, they don't want to have things, like, they want to, like, experience it. They have to have this moment. And so he realizes that nobody wants to hear that explanation, and neither does his mom, and there's no point. There's no point in trying to explain it to them because they're not going to hear it no matter what. They're going to do what they're going to do. So, it's just like, okay, fine. You're not going to listen to my explanation. You definitely want to die. You're trying to die. You're not going to stop me. I can't stop you from not stopping me. So we'll just fucking do this. Matthew Raymond says, is Paul seeing his mother as his enemy a metaphor for the conflict between a parent's expectations for the future of their child and the child's desire to shape their own future? Totally. That's totally a thing that's going on. I mean, even though Paul is, like, super mature for his age, he's still 15, and he's still got a mom who's over here trying to be like, you're going to go be the best, like, go to this college and be the best doctor, lawyer, like, trying to, like, get him to do all this stuff. You got to get your dukedom back. We got to fucking get House Atreides back on the fucking map. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to have to marry you to, like, a really high-ranking lady. You can't have, like, a Fremen wife. Like, can't do that. Like, sorry. And, yeah, like, all people, it's like, people chafe against that, It's just like, nobody wants to do what their parents want them to do. Like, it's just not the deal. I mean, it's like, I don't know. My parents did not, well, my dad did not want me to go to art school, but I was like, nope, sorry, gotta go to art. Oh, that's what you don't want me to do? Okay, I'm gonna go to fucking art school. Like, yes, I'm totally gonna do that. Because you do have a desire to shape your own future, especially him, because he is so locked. He is so trapped by future. Like, I mean, he sees it and then predicts it, and then it happens, but then he also is trying to not, like, he's trying to shape it, but then it's, like, bigger than he can even shape, and, oh, God, it's just, like, it's a lot for him to deal with. It's, like, so much. So that's why he chooses Paul Muad'Dib, because he knew that they were going to call him Muad'Dib, but he never saw that they would call him Paul Muad'Dib, and so he's trying to like see if what change that will create. You know, I mean, maybe he wants to create chaos that he doesn't see. You know, he wants to have some surprises. Bebe Leche asks, Paul keeps having visions of the Atreides banner waved as a massive jihad is sweeping across the universe in his name. He views this as a bad thing, that he must not let it happen. But why? Isn't this what he ultimately wants, to get revenge for his house? Well, yeah, like as we talked about earlier, it's like it just sucks. Like, can you imagine like millions of people dying in your name and knowing that that's going to happen and being like, yeah, I don't really want a bunch of men and women and children to die because of me. It's not really, I mean, I get why it has to happen. I understand the importance of why it has to happen. Doesn't make it any less fucking lame and like hurts your soul and is sad. Max Barrow asks, what do you make of Jessica's apparent willingness to manipulate the Fremen beliefs for the benefit of her son compared to her feelings that she previously shared with Yui? Motivating people, forcing them to your will, gives you a cynical attitude towards humanity. It degrades everything it touches. Don't these two things contradict each other? Is Frank Herbert writing from the point of view of a cynical attitude towards humanity? Because it seems like much of the religion depicted so far, such as the missionary Protectiva and Kyne's father's belief system, set up the Fremen for their bringing water to Arrakis, seem to be expressly designed for motivating and manipulating people. And the thing is like she's using it because she has to survive. Like she's using this right now as a survival, and if she wasn't in a survival situation, she wouldn't be doing these things and wouldn't be manipulating this. But she knows that this has specifically been here for someone like her to use. She's going to have to use it because she values her life and she values the life of her son. And so she's going to do what she has to do, even though she is cynical about doing it and like she doesn't like to do it. She doesn't enjoy doing it. Like for example, you know, Paul, when he hears her doing the cant, the prayer of Salat, like he detects the cynicism in her voice. Like nobody else can detect it, but he knows her so well that he's like, even he can detect it. And like she doesn't like doing it. Like she doesn't take joy in doing it. She's not like, haha, like I fucked them over, you know. She's just doing it because she has to. So, and the thing is she didn't do that on Leto because she was in love with him. I mean, she respected him. They were like fucking, they were in love, you know. Like you're not gonna do that to him. Like these Fremen people, she's not in love with them. She's trying to like find allies, you know, and that's a whole other different bag of cats. So. I also want to say thanks so much for doing Dune Club. I'm not really a reader, but I've been wanting to become more of one for the longest time. I've never read Dune before in this club format. It's so good. I've been able to get so much more out of it as we go through it all together. Well, great, Max. That's what I was hoping was going to happen. Okay, that's what I'm trying for. Arenatius asks, why do you think Jessica is so singularly minded? She's almost 2D. Paul doesn't want all this blood on his hands, where she is only concerned about using the Fremen to win back Paul's place for him. And I think it's really interesting that they seem to, like, Paul and Jessica seem to go back and forth. Like, when they're first in the desert, she's shocked at how cold and calculating Paul is. You know, I mean, while she's still mourning the death of Leto and, like, just trying to process all this heavy shit that's just happened to them, he's, like, scheming away. You know, and he's like, okay, we gotta contact the Fremen and maybe da-da-da. And then she's like, what the fuck is his problem? He's being an asshole, you know? But then now, Paul is starting to process all this stuff. And then she's picking up the slack, and now she's become the cold and calculating one. You know, it's like they kind of do this thing where they go back and forth and like balance one another, you know? And that's it is kind of what you have to do when you are in an impossible odd situation with another person, when you're in a team with two people. I mean, that's something that I find happening with director T-Bone and I. I mean, we do that all the time where one of us is up when the other one's down. Like one of us will be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, you know, fucking dying. And then the other one's like, okay, I'm going to get all this work done. Da, 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 you know, and then it'll switch. And then, you know, it's like, it's crazy how that works. Like, I don't know if any of you guys been in you guys have been in relationships, you know how it is. When one's up, one's down, one's down, one's up. It's a whole thing. So I think that she's kind of making up for his, like, subconsciously, you know, making up for the fact that he's, like, processing right now. So she's, like, taking over the cold calculations. Mario asks, "Hi, I was wondering about the use of the word weirding. The shout out Mapes use it to describe the plant conservatory in Arakeen Place. Now Silgard's using it to indicate Jessica and her style of combat. Is there a link?" As I said in the session, weirding is something that is so fucking awesome, like something that seems mystical or magical. Like it's just a term to describe something that somebody doesn't understand and doesn't understand it so much so that they think it's fucking magic. Or it's just like that's fucking crazy. So that's essentially that's just what it means. I hope that helps. David says, "Hi CBG19, just joined Team 19. Hello. Thank you for bending the knee, Team 19, House 19, declaring yourself. Dune Club has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for doing this. It's the highlight next to flight training of each week." Oh, flight training, that's fucking awesome. "I agree with your pivoting to doing more in-depth content. It has been really more inspiring and life-changing for me as a filmmaker and a pilot. Continue to do what you're doing and not what all these other channels are doing." No problem, my man. No problem. Again, like, I'm the rebel. That's why I feel bad for Jamas, too, because I'm the fucking rebel. Like, I'm the fucking rebel. I'm the outsider. And, like, yeah, I don't want to do what other people are doing. I've watched your videos on repeat, which is countless hours of inspiration and intelligence. Greater Creators was an incredible venture, and I watched Jodorowsky, Frazetta, Miyazaki, Moore, and Kubrick videos on multiple occasions. Keep doing what you're doing. It's incredibly inspiring, and love your outfits for the pre-Dune Club videos. They have remarkable beauty to them and really set the mood. Thank you. I ordered them all off of Toby.com. They had this massive fucking sale. I got 12 dresses for, like, they were like about $18 to $20 a piece. Like when I did the math for it, and I was like, fuck yes. Although, okay, so I saw a lot of you people being like, oh, she wore the same outfit twice in a row, and two reasons why I did that. One, I think that dress looks the most like a still suit, and Paul and Jessica are in the desert, and they're like still in the desert, and they've like been in their still suits. So I thought it was kind of like that was my thinking on why to wear those two, because it's like they're in their still suits. But then also, one of the dresses that I purchased, I tried it on the other day, and it looks like shit. It just didn't work out at all. Like you know, you order stuff online, and most of the time they work out for me. This one didn't work out, so I needed to like double one up because I'm running out of dresses. So, but I got some. Don't worry, I got a lot of cool new stuff coming along, and yeah. James Garner says, "I kind of want to see Kyle play the Emperor. Kyle MacLachlan play the Emperor, which would be kind of awesome." I'd like to see Kyle pop up somewhere. I think that Kyle MacLachlan is, I don't know, I have such a crush on him. He's one of my old man crushes. I have a lot of old man crushes. I don't really have a lot of young man crushes. I'm more like, I don't know, I'm into old dudes, I guess. I don't know. It's just the people that I was growing, you know, get them while they're young, they're yours forever. It's like the people that I got crushes on when I was growing up were like full grown dudes. And so now they're like super old. But Kyle MacLachlan is still awesome. And I can't wait to watch Twin Peaks. I have not watched the new season of Twin Peaks. I am a Twin Peaks fan. I watched a bunch, like all of them, a couple years ago when they were on Netflix. I was like saving myself for this moment, and then I binge watched it when I was like really depressed and I needed something to get me out of this depression. So I watched it, and then I was just like, oh my god, I fell in love with Kyle MacLachlan all over again. All over again. He's so cute. Oh my god, I can't even with how cute he is. And so now he's still cute. He's still super cute, and I want to see the new Twin Peaks. And I've been waiting also. I need to wait till after Dune Club, because there's something called, like, there's something I'm aware of, which is like your mental bandwidth. Okay? Like mental bandwidth. It's a thing. There's only so many things that you can get like in-depth think about at a time. And so right now I'm like balls deep in Dune, you know, like I'm just like all in on Dune right now. So I don't have the mental bandwidth to devote to Twin Peaks the way that I'm gonna need to, because every time you watch some David Lynch shit, it really fucking works on your subconscious. It really like stirs weird shit up in you. It's like a whole experience to watch David Lynch stuff. It's very affecting, and I just haven't had, I can't be thrown off like that right now. So, and I also want to watch Twin Peaks when it's not summer. I feel like it's a fall show. Like I don't know how it's like where it's set, but I just feel like I want to watch it in the fall. So I'm gonna be watching that after Dune Club's over. Dune Club will be ending October 1st on Sunday. So yeah. So now we're gonna turn it over to some questions from Twitch. Let me turn on my airdrop here. Everyone? Okay. And while...
So I've only got about 5.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people joined Patreon and just leave them there.
Yeah.
So hopefully some people.
Thank you guys for joining Patreon and leaving your questions there. Thanks for bending the knee. House 19. You know what I'm saying?
Should be coming in.
Accept. Okay, cool. Whoop. Okay, I got him. So KH Murphy 92 asks, Stilgar seems to be very insightful to me. I wish some of our current leaders would read his explanation of what it means to be a leader. A leader, you see, is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. He maintains the level of individuals. Too few individuals, and a people revert to a mob. I wish politicians would keep the individual in mind when making decisions. What do you think? Yeah, yes, totally. Because, it's so great. They have a leader who is literally the strongest among them. Like, you have to be a fucking super badass. And that's how they choose their leaders, is not based on some trickery, fucking bullshit, fraud voting system, whatever. Like, it's done through fucking one-on-one combat, and just everyone knows this dude, and everyone's like, yeah, this guy's fucking badass. We'll follow this guy because they know him, you know. But we have this such a big nation, you know, that you can't really know your leaders like that. You know, it works on a small scale. It doesn't really work on a large scale. But that's something that, yeah, obviously, like, our leaders they don't give a fuck about the individual. They give a fuck about who's paying them to vote for whatever, in whatever way. Like, let's be, like, super real about it. Like, the people, like, people who are attracted to power, like, people who are attracted to those sort of things, it's like, you gotta keep an eye on them, you know? Like, especially in our fucking society, it's just, you know, everyone has this illusion of, like, oh, you know, these people get into politics because they want to make it a better place, and I'm not saying that's not entirely true. I think that some people who get involved do genuinely want to make it a better place, but I think a lot of people who get involved are people who want to make a bunch of money, and I think that's like the reality of the situation. And they don't care about making this place better. You know, it's like they don't. Like, I don't believe that our politicians. Like, I don't trust politicians. Like, I don't know why people trust them. Like, they're ridiculous. Because if they did care, they would be trying to keep a level of individuals. But as our capitalistic system is, it's like it doesn't. You don't want to make everyone stronger. You want to make them weaker so they'll buy more stuff. You know, and that's like the fucking game that we're playing right now. It's like really fucking stupid and backwards. I'm just like, that's why, like, I don't know. I need to get in my later years, you know, I just really want to work on, and I'm still learning. I mean, I have a lot of stuff to learn, but I really want to crunch on the problem of education. You know, I think that that's really something that's really important, much more important than politics, is like how you educate your kids. And, you know, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll have a kid, maybe I won't. I don't know how it's, you know, I'm not ready right now, whatever. But it's like, I think about like having a kid and like having them go to school and just like being like, how dumb it is, like how dumb school is, and how like if they're, you know, I'm just like, like I don't want them to be homeschooled necessarily, because then they get weird. I mean, you have to socialize them, but then the school system is like retarded in its own way, and it's like, what is the fucking answer here? Like, what is the answer? Like, we've got to like figure out this problem, because it's like again, like back to our talking shit on education. It's like, it's not like, I don't feel like schools are really there to teach individuals to be strong, smart individuals. It's there to teach people to get up at a certain time, leave at a certain time, obey authority, regurgitate answers, you know, just be able to like, oh, I see this thing, I was told this, and then I can regurgitate it. I read it and I memorized it, and then I can circle it on the test. And like, that's not intelligence. That's not teaching people intelligence. Like, that's not the way to do it. You know, you need to teach people to think critically, to think abstractly. You know, we're taught to think very logically, very linearly. You know, that's why we have this whole like, is one thing this, or is it this? You know, everyone thinks that something has to be one or another, when really it's both. You know, because that's hard logic, where it's just like, oh, it's one thing. You know, it's not. It can't be complicated. So we try to simplify everything. So yeah, you know, that's, I don't know, I want to get into education later on in life. I mean, that's what I've been doing. I mean, I've been teaching myself to teach for years now. Like, that's what I've been doing, is teaching myself how to fucking teach people, and it's really difficult. And I come up with new ways all the time, though. I come up with like a lot of interesting new things that I think about, and I'm like, oh, it's hard to like, even if you realize it though, like even if you realize a better way to teach people something, it still takes a lot of time to figure out how to implement that and how to make that work. Because I was talking with T-Bone the other day about how making someone feel something is a better way to, at least for me, if I can feel something, I can teach it or I can learn it better than if somebody just tells me, like if somebody just tells me how to do it. Like I don't, it's like, why do I care? And I think that context is something that's really important. I think context is something that is missing, especially like history classes. You know, like we learn things like, oh, this happened and this happened and this happened, which by the way, history books are written by the winners. So it's like you don't know the full story, but then you're taught like, oh, this is the full fucking story. Like, no, it's not. You don't even know. But yeah, it's like context is really important. You know, like we learn about, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to bring up this one example, but it's like we learn about things without understanding the full context of them, and that's a problem. It's the same thing with like art. Like when I did art history, because I went to art school, so I took a lot of art history classes, and the difference between a good art history class and a bad art history class was whether the teacher just was like, okay, here's a slide. This was made in 500 BC by this fucking king, blah, 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 pharaoh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, you need to, or even like, okay, here's a, you know, here's a Jackson Pollock painting, you know, with just squiggles of paint everywhere, you know, oh, you need to know this Jackson Pollock painting. Well, why is Jackson Pollock? Why? Well, it's because at the time, no one had ever used paint as, like, paint wasn't something that you looked at on its own on a canvas. It was used to create this larger image. With Jackson Pollock, not that I love his work and anything is like that great, but like I get why it was a thing because no one at that point or no one had popularized the idea of like paint as the medium. Like this is just globs of paint, you know, like let me just show you, like that's what we're really looking at. There was also, I remember like I did this report on John Singer Sargent's Madam X. I really love John Singer Sargent. I think he's an amazing paint. His fucking paintings blow my fucking brains out. And, you know, you look at this painting and it's just this woman and she's kind of like wearing this black dress and she has like this like little slip, you know, this like little, her bra strap has fallen. It's not her bra strap, but her strap has fallen. And like, oh my God, that fucking painting caused a fucking ruckus, like a ruckus. Like at the time, like it was just like having a strap falling down was just like, oh my God, you know, it's like Kim Kardashian breaking the internet with her fat ass out, you know, it's just like the same sort of shit at the time was this shocking thing, you know, and like, you don't understand like the impact of these paintings unless you understand the historical significance and what was going on around them. And so that's really important. I think we need to teach context, like, and yeah. Anyways, I know I'm getting off on a tangent here. K.H. Murphy asks, question. One of the headers says the concept of progress acts as a protective mechanism to shield us from the terrors of the future. Oh, I love that so much. Do you think Herbert was warning us to be careful of getting wrapped up with technology while ignoring the reality of climate change? And I think that he's really, I mean, I think that that's absolutely something he's talking about, but I don't think that that's what this header is specifically talking about. I think that this header is saying, okay, the concept of progress acts as a protective mechanism to shield us from the terrors of the future, which chaos. It's embrace the chaos. He's essentially saying embrace the chaos, and the idea of progress is a way to help us embrace the chaos of the future because it is really scary. We don't know where the fuck we're going. We don't know where this is all going to lead. It's terrifying. And so, but if you have the idealism of like progress, we're making progress, you know, it shields you from that terror of chaos so that you think that you're doing something that's awesome. And I just have a couple more questions here. I got 3 more questions. All right, we got 3 more questions. KH Murphy 92 also asks, do you think that Paul's choice of taking Jamas's balisette during the funeral alludes to the fact that he realizes that Jamas and Gurney have both been important teachers for him? Yes. Yeah, I think that he takes the balisette because he does miss Gurney. I mean, he's even talked about him. He's like, I see Gurney in certain visions. You know, I don't know if he's alive or if he's dead. Like, I don't know if I've done something to like, Like, that sucks so bad where you're like, an action I could take could kill this guy, you know, and I have no idea whether, like, I've done the right thing or not and whether he's still going. But yeah, the balisette is definitely, like, a symbol of his old life. It's also a symbol of him taking the mantle of the warrior. I mean, Gurney was this troubadour warrior that taught him so much, one of his major teachers. And Jamis has also been a major teacher for him. I mean, a major teacher. And Jamis was a sacrifice, you know? I mean, he was this big fucking sacrifice for Paul, and he respects that. And so, yeah, and so he wants to, you know, take up that balisette. And obviously, I mean, if he's, you know, Jamis was like the fucking cool guy in the group who brought the fucking guitar along, you know, like at night. Like I don't know, he loves that. He loves that about this guy, and he wants to like feel closer to him, closer to the man that he had to kill, that he didn't want to kill. So yeah, that's why he took the balisette. But yeah, Jamis and Gurney have both been really important teachers. In fact, it's important to think about, like, I would encourage everyone out there to think about the teachers in your own life, especially people like who you think are like trolls in your life, like people who like piss you the fuck off and people who've gone out of the way to fuck your shit up. Like, those are really honestly some of your greatest teachers in life. And to have honor for them, you know, like honor them in a way. Like, you can still be like, yeah, fuck you, you're a dick. Like, they're still dicks, but like you can still like honor the teachings that they gave you. You don't have to be bitter about it, you know. As long as you learn something from it, then the experience was worthwhile. Stargazer 1977 asks, it's worthwhile to recognize that Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize in Physics the year this book came out for quantum electrodynamics. Herbert obviously paid a lot of attention to the discoveries of the time. Many of Paul's descriptions fit Feynman's diagrams of many paths and the work of Paul Dirac in physics. Do you think that Herbert expected future generations to understand those things as just science? Or did he want it to seem mystical? I'm sure that Frank Herbert was definitely paying attention to what was going on. He was paying attention to everything that was going on at all times. So, yeah, I'm sure he was checking out this guy's work for sure and being influenced by it. And I think that there is a place where science becomes mystical. And that's a place, like, you know, I'm definitely into mysticism. Like, that's something that I'm definitely into. I study Christian mysticism, Judaic mysticism. I'm interested in studying more about Muslim mysticism with Sufi, the mysticism of the East. Like, I'm very much enamored by mysticism. And there's a place within science, though, just like in all these religions. I mean, science in its way is its own religion, you know? And that's why I get frustrated with science, because it is very dogmatic. And, like, I see people turning science into religion and turning it into dogma, which is like not what science should be about. That's not what it is about. That's never what it's been about truly, but that's how people are interpreting it, because I believe that people are getting away from Christianity, like, but they still need something. Like, again, we were talking about earlier, like, what is that? Like, why do we need something? But we need that something because we don't want to just rely on ourselves, I guess. We want to externalize. So instead of following the church, people are starting to follow science, but it's like masses of people. And anytime masses of people get involved in things, like, it just gets dumbed down a whole lot and gets like twisted and fucked up. And so, but the part of science that I get really interested about, and the part of science that I really love, is the part where it does become mystical. I mean, quantum physics stuff is fucking weird. And I can't even like I can't even fully grasp it a lot of times. One time I went on this podcast where these people are trying to explain a quantum computer to me, and they still did not make a dent in me. They were trying so hard. But then again, that's having an expert just because you know about something and you understand it doesn't mean you can help other people to understand it. Like, teaching people is a very difficult thing. It's not easy to take a crazy concept and be able to smush it down and make it palatable for a lot of people. It's a skill. And so, yeah, I think that he's definitely talking about the place where science becomes mystical, because there is a place. I mean, there's a place where art and science and religion meet, you know, and like that's like the area that I like. That's my little ball that I like to go check out. Virulent asks, does Frank Herbert seem to be warning against blending politics and religion? Obvious parallels to militant Islam, jihad, but I like that despite the Fremen brutality, they can still be more noble than the Imperium. And, you know, there's a Bene Gesserit axiom. I don't think it's in this book. Let me see if I can Google it real quick. When, I don't want to get this wrong. Okay, here is a great, actually this is in Dune somewhere. Okay. When religion and politics travel in the same cart, the writers believe nothing can stand in their way. Their movements become headlong, faster and faster and faster. They put aside all thoughts of obstacles and forget that the precipice does not show itself to the man in a blind rush until it's too late. So, yeah, I think that Frank Herbert is absolutely warning against having religion and politics mixed into one thing. And that's like he's saying how dangerous that can be and how it can lead into this like snowball effect of like fucking crazy shit. I mean, just look at like the fucking the what is it where the Christianity was like trying to take over like Israel, Jerusalem, the what is it? The Crusades. The Crusades, that's what it is. I mean, yeah, just look at the fucking Crusades. Like, I mean, people do crazy. The thing about religion that's scary is that, like, it can, again, you can manipulate people with it. And so you tell people, like, oh, God said this, and then they think this dogma. They take this dogma and they go, oh, okay, we're in the right, so we're gonna go fucking kill a bunch of people in the name of God, you know, because I was told that God said that that was the right thing to do, and I believe in God, and I'm dogmatic, and I'm not going to think outside the box. I'm just going to do what I'm told, you know, and like that is really fucking dangerous. It's really, really fucking dangerous. That's why there should be a separation of church and state. Okay, like that's why church and state, like, because like you can't have that sort of stuff, and it gets like shit gets fucked up really fast, and but you know. Paul, he's stuck where he's stuck, you know, and he's just like, well, I guess we're gonna have to do this. Like, we're gonna have to mix religion and fucking. It's like it's an explosive mixture. It is a dangerous, dangerous explosive mixture, and he's like, fine, all right, guys, I'm gonna use this. You've left me no choice. I'm gonna have to do this. I don't want to do this. This is gonna fucking suck. But it is, you know, it is great to see that the Fremen, you know, even though they're really brutal, they have like a fucked up society. Like they are really noble. Like again, the Fremen aren't bad people. Like just because they have religion and law mixed together, it doesn't make them bad people. Makes them like they are really noble in a lot of ways. But then, you know, killing millions of people later is like kind of a bummer, you know. So it's you know it's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing. Anyways, all right, guys. It's 5 o'clock. We've been doing this for a few hours now. Thank you guys for joining me for session 7 of Dune Club. Next week we have, or session 7 and 8, excuse me. Next week we have session 9, and that will round out book 2. So we'll be getting into book 3, The Prophet, which is the final book. Things are really going to start to heat up. So I'm really excited to finish this up, and then we can get into the final third of Dune. You guys have a great week. Keep going. Brace the camera.